just like to begin by admitting that I have another COVID haircut. I attempted some of this myself, and then my spouse saved me, but saved isn't, a negotiable term. For a number of imperfections, I'm glad this camera doesn't go up and close and personal.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are live streaming and recording, so it is 5:30, and you can start your meeting whenever you wish.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good afternoon, councillors. Good afternoon, senior leadership team, and to all those who are viewing at home. I see we have quorum, so I call this regular meeting of May 17th of Council to order. And I see that we have quorum. And next up is the approval of agenda. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the agenda for the May 17th, 2021 regular meeting of Council be adopted. Mr. Mayor, for you for any debate.
Thank you. Upon viewing the agenda, is there any changes that any councillor would like to make? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I begin this vote with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. That does bring you to your next item on the agenda, which is the disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof.
Thank you. After viewing the agenda, does any councillor member have a pecuniary interest or general nature thereof to declare? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have so noted. That does bring us down to presentations, and your first presentation is from Fire Chief with respect to his COVID presentation.
Okay. Chief Limburner, you have the floor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, SLT, and the members of the viewing audience, just a few numbers to update you on the COVID situation. We're definitely starting to improve in a lot of areas. Pelham right now has had a total case count of 568. We have 35 total active cases across the region. We had 42 today. It brings a total of 15,243. 13,507 cases resolved. We have 1,336 active cases, and our fatalities are at 400. Across the province, we're at 511,486 total cases. Of those, 477, 128 are resolved, and we're at 8,489 fatalities. Our hospital admissions continue to work their way down. We're at 1,320 total admissions. Of those, 779 are in ICU, and of those, 536 are on ventilators. Across the country, we're at 1.31 million total cases resolved, 1.237 million, and fatalities at 24,960. Across the Niagara region, our case doubling time has increased to 158 days. Our positivity rate is at 7.9. Our reproduction rate is at 0.8. Our public health department currently is working with 25 outbreaks. They've resolved 368. Infection rates across the board. The leader is close contact with confirmed cases at 65.6%. Community spread at 22.7%. Unknown spread at 9.4%. And travel 2.3%. As far as vaccines go, Niagara, as to date, has administered 227,637, which is 44.7% of our population. Province-wide, we're about just over 7.1 million. Province or Canada-wide, we're at 18.6 million. Our provincial indicators continue to improve. Our reproduction rate's in green. Our new case unknown spread is in green. Our other indicators are remaining in red, but they are improving. Our MCC is now operating at a 24 injection site, which is the maximum size that we can accommodate. We're putting over 2,000 persons a day through the facility. Today was day 2 of 7 days that we're offering, and things are going very well. Shout out to Vicky and her staff there or the RCW and staff for their contributions and their efforts. They're doing a great job, so thanks for that. Province is announced today they're opening vaccine appointments starting tomorrow to anyone 18 years and older. Niagara has also moved some dates for second shots to frontline workers. Me personally, I had my second shot scheduled for June the 17th, and they called me today, and my date has been moved up to May the 26th. So that's really positive to start to hear that the volumes and the inventory are supporting the increase in shots. So I would think that we'll continue to get some good news across the board as far as vaccinations go. Public health has also developed a program through EMS for home appointments. So if you have or know of people that are non-ambulatory, you call public health, they will book you an appointment, and EMS will come to your home and give you your shot. So just call in the Niagara Region Public Health line. It's a common number that you can call. It's nothing special. And today the province announced that summer camps will be allowed this summer, both day and overnight camps, which includes Pelham. I would assume that they haven't announced it yet, but I would assume that would include the pool. So we should look at that. The summer camps should be up and going. So that's the end of my report. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Chief, for a thorough report. Before I go to any council members, I'd just like to comment on the number of new cases in the region, down to 42. It seems that it goes to a really low, and then the next day it goes up to the 100 mark. Any reason why that seems to be jumping around like that? Hopefully it'll be 42 today, and hopefully tomorrow it's going to be 22. But like I say, sometimes it seems to jump around a bit. Got any indication why that is, Chief?
Through Mr. Mayor, there's a number of factors when it comes to reporting numbers. Some of it has to do with resources for follow-ups. There's a lag. Sometimes the information, when it comes to case follow-ups, it takes quite a bit of staff and a lot of calls. And actually the number is improving in that. But in the number of tests they do in a day, if they do they do 30, 40, 50,000 tests in the province, then the number will be a bit higher. And if the tests are down, then the number, it's proportional, right? Mm-hmm. So, but it's a lot to do with staff. And if you look at our resolved cases are lagging because it's just sheer numbers of people to reach out to follow up, and we just don't have the resources, the staff to do that. So, but public health is doing an amazing job. They are like working 7 days a week, 14, 16 hours a day, and I shout out to them. They're doing an amazing job. So our numbers do lag at times, but it's still a very positive situation.
No, thank you, Chief, for that. And yes, you're definitely right. The numbers are definitely coming down at a pretty good pace, and hopefully we'll continue to do so. Any comments from any councillors on the Fire Chief's report? Not seeing any. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Kaur. Be it resolved that Council receive the COVID-19 update presentation from B. Limburner, Fire Chief and Community Emergency Management Coordinator for information. For the vote, I start with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, and that carries. That brings you to your next presentation, which is through our CAO, Mr. David Cribbs.
Okay, Mr. CAO, you have the floor.
Good evening, Council. Just a couple of minor update points as they pertain to COVID. Anecdotally from Public Works, reports are that trail usage is essentially through the roof, as high as it's ever been. Accordingly, we do have staff who are sort of cleaning the trails daily, and we've already devoted staff time towards trail maintenance and cutting back brush, etc. So that's extremely heavy, and residents are clearly enjoying what Pelham has to offer. And then the other piece of some amount of significance is that we are experiencing some difficulties on the enforcement side with respect to residents not fully respecting the rules around the skateboard park. This is a flashpoint at several area municipalities. Pelham is not alone in experiencing this. I can tell you that at this point in time, we're at full strength as far as our enforcement staff goes. You will recall that last year, council approved the hiring of a student. So this is the second year in a row we've had a student on top of the full-time complement of 2.0 enforcement. So we're at two and a half during summer months, and they're spending a disproportionate amount of time there. And frankly, people are just taking down the snow fencing or the guard barriers and the please keep off and keep out sort of signs and the health warnings. We find those on the ground consistently, and so put them back up. Sort of circular logic spiral. Just for your information, we do hope that the public will respect the health orders, even those they don't necessarily agree with. And until there's a change, we will continue enforcement efforts in that regard with specific concentration on the skateboard park. That's the report to you at this time. Subject to questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Mr. CAO. Any comments or questions from any members of council? I'm not seeing any. I would just like to take this opportunity to state that the mayors of the region, the 12 mayors of the region, on Friday, we sent a letter to the Premier of Ontario asking him to please reconsider the opening of outside recreational facilities, skate parks and golf courses and tennis courts being among them. We pointed out that the vast majority of medical practitioners are indeed saying the same thing, that the risk of infection at these outside facilities is relatively low, and that the benefit would outweigh the harm. Unfortunately, we haven't heard from them yet, and because the provincial mandate is to no skate parks open right now, the town, of course, has to enforce that mandate. So anyway, hopefully if the numbers keep falling, as the chief has mentioned, hopefully we will get some relief on these outdoor facilities. Any questions on this report? Not seeing any, I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council received the COVID-19 update presentation from D. Cribbs, Chief Administrative Officer, for information. For this vote, I will begin with Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. Mr. Mayor, that brings us to item 4.2.1. We do have a delegation, registered delegation from Mr. Steven Seuss. If you can just give us one moment, we'll just be bringing him in from the waiting room.
Of course.
I see that Mr. Seuss has joined us. I think he's just turning on his camera. I would just remind the presenter, delegations are limited to 10 minutes. In that regard, I do have a timer, and I will be timing the presentation. And at 8 minutes, Mr. Seuss, you'll hear a bell like that. And then I will ring the bell another 2 times at 10 minutes. If you are ready, sir, you may begin.
Well, thank you for your indulgence, and thanks for letting me come and present to the council. So I'm presenting on petition E3351. Now, previously, Pelham Town Council supported mine and Councillor Wayne Campbell's motion for Niagara Regional Council to declare a state of emergency on mental health, homelessness, and addiction. Unfortunately, it wasn't the will of the region to carry on with that. However, we have moved to the national spotlight, and petition E3351, supported by Dean Allison, who is the MP for Niagara West, which of course covers Pelham, seeks to launch a study on the merits of declaring a national emergency, and that would be done in the Federal Standing Committee on Health. So I'm just going to read quickly the motion that I wrote under the petition. Whereas several provinces have declared emergencies on various circumstances over time, whereas Canada is allowed to declare national emergencies under the Emergencies Act 1985, whereas approximately 1 in 5 Canadians will experience a mental health problem or illness, whereas the economic burden of mental illness in Canada is estimated at $51 billion per year, including healthcare costs, lost productivity, and reductions in health-related quality of life. That's according to CAMH. Whereas not addressing mental health issues and illness is costly in the long term to Canada's economy. And whereas, according to a recent Morneau Shepherd poll, 50% of Canadians reported that their mental health has worsened with the COVID-19 pandemic, with mental health-related hospitalizations, crisis line use, and addiction rates skyrocketing. Be it resolved, we, the undersigned citizens of Canada, call upon the House of Commons to launch a study in the Standing Committee on Health, which is known as the HESA, on the merits of declaring a national emergency on mental health. So Pelham Town Council has been extremely supportive with the original call, and now we're simply just taking it to the federal level. And I allude to a recent CBC article that was posted in March just of this year, which talks about how youth in hospital have tripled after suicide attempts. This is concerning. Crisis lines. We look at Kids Help Phone on the national scale. Before the pandemic, the usage was 1.9 million. Today, it's 4 million. That is a huge jump. These are our young people. These are our kids. These are our grandkids. So I'm going to make it short and sweet here, and I am going to encourage everybody to not only sign this petition, but to support, endorse the petition as a council, and that the resolution be that the Prime Minister of Canada, the Minister of Health, and the federal standing committees on committee members of health be copied on the resolution if it is the will of a councillor to move said motion. Thank you for your indulgence, Chair, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for this presentation, Mr. Zeus. I think it's a well-known fact that when this pandemic is winding down, but the effects of it are going to be felt for months, if not years, with the mental stress that everyone has had to endure the last year, and obviously for a little bit longer in the future. Again, thank you for this presentation. Comments or questions on the presentation? I see Councillor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I've been noticing in residents complaining about the sense of isolation that they feel and the sense of loss and the sort of hopelessness that comes over them. And I think that it'd be the odd person who wouldn't feel that they're being changed by this pandemic and the circumstances that arise. And I'm thinking about people like the caregivers. We have a number of caregivers in our community. And I was so pleased to hear the chief say that we could call the health unit and get shots at home, because I've been asked that question several times by people and they're left, they're sort of left behind. And we see the symptoms of this when Mr. Cribbs reported difficulties at the skate park. these are people, these folks have lost their leagues and their school. They don't have all the social interactions they had in the isolation. And I think it's to be expected, not acceptable, but to be expected that people are going to try and get around the rules like that. And I think this is a huge issue. And if we didn't have a problem with the pandemic, we had one with the drugs and overdose and things like that as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing any. Councillor Olson?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I wonder if I could move an amendment to the motion, and that would be that the motion be amended to include and the council support and endorse petition E3351, and that council for the town of Pelham direct the town clerk to circulate the endorsement to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, members of the Standing Committee on Health, Premier Doug Ford, Minister of Health Patty Haydew, MP Dean Allison, MPP Sam Oosterhoff, the Niagara region and local area municipalities.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a seconder for this? I see both Councillor Wink and Councillor Corr. Councillor Wink, then. Any debate on this amendment? Seeing none, I'll turn to the clerk.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarity, if it's okay, I'd like to read into the record the original main motion, which was brought forth by Councillor Stewart and seconded by Councillor Olson. The original motion is, be it resolved that Council receive the delegation from Stephen Seuss regarding petition E3351, calling upon the House of Commons to launch a study into the merits of declaring a national emergency on mental health for information. We do have an amendment put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Wink. Through you, Mr. Mayor, unless there's discussion, I can call the vote on the amendment.
Again, I'll call for discussion on the amendment. Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would start the vote with Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Hahn,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Councillor Corr,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. The amendment passes. That would then bring us to the main motion as amended.
Thank you.
Unless there's any discussion on the main motion as amended.
Any discussion? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. I will start the vote again with Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Hahn,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Councillor Corr,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, and that does carry.
Okay. Again, thank you for your presentation this evening, Mr. Zeus. And obviously, you have the support of this council in your endeavors.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to council, and everybody have a great night.
Okay.
Thank you. If council can just give us a moment to remove Mr. Seuss from the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring us to our next agenda item, adoption of minutes. And if you'd like, you can call for any errors or omissions.
Okay, thank you. Item number 5 on the agenda, adoption of minutes, as the clerk has said. After reading these minutes, has any councillor have any comments or have found any omissions that they would like to bring forth? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion is put forth by Councillor Corr, seconded by Councillor Wink. Is be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read for C-08/2021 regular council minutes, May 3rd, 2021. As there was no discussion, I'd call for the vote, starting with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Corr.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. Through you, Mr. Mayor, this does bring us to item number 7 on the agenda. As council is aware, council may lift an item of an agenda from the consent agenda if they wish to amend the resolution presented. If councilors wish just to comment on the item, they do not require to lift. Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to see if there are any members of council who would like to lift any items.
Yes. Is there any councillors that would like to lift any of the agenda item or consent of agenda? And I see Councillor Hildebrand.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Item 8.5.6.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other items from any other councillors? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Before I call the vote for this, and if any councillor wished they could speak to any items, I'm not sure if councillors wanted to or if I should just call the vote.
I'm sure there's going to be discussion on a few of these. Now is the time to discuss this?
I certainly, before I call the vote on the consent, we're now at item number 8, so it would be the time if councillors wanted to discuss any items before I call the vote.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Wink.
Yeah, so I've got a number of comments, but I'd like to just go down in order so we're not jumping all over the place.
Okay.
8.4.2 Pelham Audit and Finance Committee. As chair of the audit committee, and Councillor Olson and Councillor Kaur are also on the finance and audit committee, really pleased with the results. The results are because of the hard work of all our staff. I look at the expenses of 2020 compared to 2019, and they're almost identical. So there's been a concerted effort on keeping costs down. I want to commend the treasurer, Teresa Quinlan, and Charlotte, deputy treasurer, with respect to, whoops. Sorry about that.
Was that an earthquake, Councillor?
I'll hold it up for a while. They've done amazing work with respect to the statements. Not only were they integral in keeping costs down, but the grants that we received from the government, they went line by line through all our income and expenses, and put the applications in for the grants, and we ended up getting considerable amount of grants as a result. If you look at the size of the grants, particularly the first one, it was well over $1 million. And you look at the other municipalities in the region, they were nowhere near what population of 18,000 people were able to get allocated towards them. So great job on that. The numbers look amazing. Part of that is thanks to the sale of a lot of land that we had. There was a lot of effort on behalf of staff and council in getting these parcels sold. So that's a good news story. Reserves, we were able to replenish reserves quite a bit this year. And part of that too is some of the capital projects had been postponed because due to COVID. So some of those reserves will be dipped into this year. Reserves look, if you look on the surface, reserves do look very good, but we're still probably about $8 million short of where we should be. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but I commend staff for the work that they did in 2020 under such a difficult year with COVID and the like. So thank you, staff, and congratulations on such a fine report.
And I'll just hold you on that I know you got other items you want to address, Council, but we'll let other council members also address this this item. I see Councillor Kaur, who is on the audit committee. Councillor Kaur?
Yes, I want to also thank Teresa and Charlotte for doing a great job over the last year and a half. What they brought back to that department is integrity, structure, reporting, and most of all, transparency. And transparency in the point of reports. And when you ask a question, they're not afraid to answer it. Sometimes it might not be the answer we're looking for, but they're not afraid to give that. And it really feels good to understand that we're not trying to hide anything anymore. So thank you very much for bringing back that financial department where it should have been. So thank you very much, both of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll go to the other committee member, Councillor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you I want to make a comment about the way the things that have happened financially to the town, and to commend yourself as mayor and to my fellow councilors, because the decisions that you've made and the efforts that you've made have made a big difference, and we're in a much better place because of it. And I want to pay tribute to the staff as well, because a lot of the time now they're working from home, and they're not, we have to rely on their personal leadership skills to get the results that they've got. And when you look at the things that have gone right in the town, things like such as our succession plan, which is exceptional, the MCC, the fire department, all those things have worked very, very well in times of stress. And we've managed to respond to citizens' concerns and requests. And I would say in an exceptional manner. I get all kinds of credit for make sure that you comment about the reservice we got from Public Works and Recreation. Now, having said that, the positive narrative is fine. I think there's a cautionary narrative as well. We still, according to public standards, we still have too much of our taxes and user fees go toward servicing our debt. And according to public standards, our cash positions needs to be stronger. And we don't have an old arena land to sell. We've got to keep our nose to the grindstone with this, and I'm sure we will, because I think our staff has done an exceptional job, and we know the direction we're going. The path's not always going to be clear. It's going to take leadership and guidance, but we have everything to make sure that happens. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for that. I see Councillor Hahn.
Through the mayor, I echo my fellow councillors. Thank you so much to the treasurer and deputy treasurer. You guys have done a really great job. And similar to what Councillor Kaur said, you've helped right the ship. We're going in the right direction. And I think that the public really appreciates the transparency, and that's something we all campaigned on. So we're definitely going in the right direction, and it's so much thanks to you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I see Councillor Hildebrand. Oh, you're muted, sir.
I'd also like to echo my fellow councillors' comments, but I'd like to specifically highlight the effort they put in on grants. It's huge. As you know, that pandemic relief grant that we got, we were only one of four municipalities that got it. We're one of the 12, and there's only 4 that got it. That was an amazing effort. And the depth and the detail you had to go into to achieve that was amazing. So thanks very much to the Treasury Department. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I also would like to thank our dedicated, hardworking staff and the members of the audit committee. I sat on that committee for a time until Councillor Olson took it over. And the depth of knowledge and the hard work and dedication put in by the outside members. I can't remember both names, Bill Crum, I think they were Bill and Bill, the amount of hours they put in reviewing all the materials and coming to the meetings and explaining and helping to guide the ship. I'd just like to thank everybody for their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And I would just like to add that I sat in on the committee meeting last Wednesday when when this good news story was first brought forward, and it was great to see on the audit committee we have four Councillor Olson and the three, I guess, and the two residents. So we have 3 CPAs on the committee itself, and then of course the staff members. And it was just great to see everyone on the audit committee putting forth great ideas, and the staff being so receptive to those ideas, and everybody just working on a common goal to get this town running as efficiently as we can and keep the costs down. So it was great, and I will ask our treasurer if she has any words that she would like to add to this, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just thank everyone for your kind comments on behalf of our department, Charlotte and I do want to recognize the senior team this year, and also to council as well. I mean, the decisions to sell the lands, for us to work as a team, both staff with council, was significant in helping us to bring down the debt. We were able to eliminate the construction bridge loan by selling the Fawn Hill lands, and then also the arena lands helped to replenish some of the cash. So by working together as a team, we did a great job that way. The senior team working together through a very, very difficult year. I mean, we didn't know until, like probably a week before Christmas. We didn't know until 5 days before Christmas what amount we were going to receive with the COVID funding. So we were trying to balance the whole year, the whole senior team, assuming we were going to get a very small number. And so I commend the whole team for being very creative. I mean, opening up the MCC in the summer for 2 months was something that was very innovative. Other municipalities were looking at us and saying, what are you guys doing? And we ran swimming programs. And it was just such a wonderful to be part of this team, the senior team, and also to have council support. And so on behalf of myself, and I would say the senior team as well, thank you for your support. It was a tough year. That's all I have to say. It was a really tough year because of the unknown. We didn't know what COVID meant, the impact of COVID, until the very last minute, and then we got that surprise. And, we were surprised as well that only 48 out of 444 municipalities applied for the phase 2 funding. And that's where, we put all our efforts into that because we knew how critical it was for the town. And I would say that was the game changer for us. Not only did it help us in 2021, but it also allowed us to carry forward over $600,000 to the 2022. Not only did it help us in 2020, it allowed us to carry forward $600,000 to the 2021 budget, which enabled us to decrease the tax levy from the original amount that we brought to council. So that was very significant. But I would just want to say that it's been a team effort, and the staff as well. The staff have been unbelievable as far as working, from home and trying to run the office. We were able to meet, the building permits that were issued. It was just incredible. If you look at the numbers, how many building permits we surpassed last year in a pandemic when 2 months we weren't allowed to issue building permits, but the staff did it. The public works staff, all the services we were able to achieve it. So I just feel so proud to be part of this team. And I just wanted to thank everyone for your kind words, but it's just been a wonderful, wonderful team effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those words, Madame Treasurer. I would be remiss, I think, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, Charlotte, if the Deputy Treasurer would care to say a few words.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would like to echo Teresa's sentiments. There's really nothing I could add to it, but I'm very thankful for the kind words of council, the support of council, the team effort of SLT, and it's just a wonderful thing to celebrate that we've started to move in the right direction financially, and I'm excited about what's in store.
Thank you for that, for those words, and I can assure both of you that this council is very appreciative, and we know that we have the best treasury team in the region. Thank you very much for your efforts. Madam Clerk? Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. Now we go back to Councillor Wink. You had a few other items you wanted to comment on.
Oh, Councillor Wink, sorry, you're muted.
Sorry about that. That's the first one in a long time, so that's my mulligan. Yes, I wish I was on the golf course. The next one I want to point out is 8.5.3 Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority minutes on April 16th. And just want to bring this one point to council's attention and to the public. And there was something in the minutes regarding trail connections where the Conservation Authority wants to convene a forum to bring agencies and municipalities in its watershed to plan and develop interjurisdictional trail network connecting municipalities, neighborhoods, employment areas, and nature destinations. The board instructs staff to explore formal partnership opportunities with municipalities to map, build, and enhance trail connections while encouraging municipalities to adopt, through official plan updates, expanded trail networks using publicly owned corridors, abandoned rail lines, and other opportunities. I applaud the Conservation Authority and their efforts to create this forum. This is something that the Pelham Active Transportation Committee has been attempting to do, to work with the region, Thorold and Welland, with modest success for linkages between their trails. And just seeing that the Conservation Authority is taking upon themselves to bring everyone together to look at interconnectedness of trails, that's extremely important for our region. If you look at other communities like Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, the amount of trails that they have that are connected are phenomenal. Ottawa has got thousands of kilometers of connected trails. So this effort is really important for our region going forward. So just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll ask any other councillors on this particular item want to make a comment also. I know Councillor Hildebrand, you're an avid bicyclist. I imagine you're all for this joining of the trails and bike paths.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. Both for cycling and for running. I think the trails we have are the best in the region, if not the best in the province. And like the CAO said, the maintenance of it is great this year. The number of people on the trails are huge and they're well used. This really is a huge asset and a great thing for people to experience, especially during this pandemic time we're experiencing. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments from any councillors? I see none. Councillor Wink, did you have any other item you want to discuss?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. 8.7.1 Pelham Active Transportation Committee minutes. You'll see that the 3 sets of minutes have been, they're pretty dated, and I made comment to at our last committee meeting, like, are we not sending our minutes into the town because I haven't been seeing them. And it was said that that had been done. So I reached out to the town clerk and Holly said that they had received them. So you're going to be inundated over the next few meetings with minutes of the Active Transportation Committee. They have been very busy and they are doing good work.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor. Any comments from any councillor on this particular consent agenda item? Not seeing any. Mr. Wink, or Councillor Wink, any other items?
That's enough for now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for bringing these items to the forefront. I turn to you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the May 17th, 2021 council agenda be received and that the recommendations contained therein be approved, save and accept item 8.5.6 as applicable. For the vote, I would begin with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that motion carries. Mr. Mayor, that does bring you to item number 9, and that's item...
Wait, don't we have to go back to Councillor's 8.5.6?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is for item number 9, the items for separate consideration.
Sorry.
So, no, absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Hildebrandt did lift item 8.5.6. It's the Integrity Commissioner Review Report. Just for clarity, the motion put forward was, be it resolved that Council receive the information report from the Integrity Commissioner, the correspondence, file IC-126280221 for information. And Councillor Hildebrandt, if you wish to speak on the matter.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make an amendment to that motion, and that the motion be amended to include, and that council direct staff to prepare a report recommending options to ensure the municipality is provided a copy of any documents or report provided from the Integrity Commissioner to the complainant or elected official requesting advice, and that the staff report back to council within the date to be established. I put an early date in there, but I'd like it by yesterday. However, I know yesterday doesn't work, so I put in there June the 21st. So that's up for discussion.
Okay, and do you have a seconder for this motion? And I see Councillor Kaur will second it. Any discussion on this, on the amendment put forward by Councillor Hildebrandt? Councillor Hildebrandt.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. When you see the report that we received again in the minutes, it's obvious that the Integrity Commissioner issued a report to the complainants and the reasons why for such a decision, but the town, the municipality, received no information with regards to it. Similarly, I'm sure when Councillor Wink or Councillor Hahn made a request to the Integrity Commissioner, the town likewise did not receive a copy of their reply. Now, I know we're counting on their integrity to provide us with our answer, but I think it's appropriate that we as council have the information at our clerk's office defining what the result of our expenditure was. I mean, we're spending a lot of money on these reports. It's not like a $10 item. So I think we need to, I'm not sure whether it's changing the contract. I'm not sure how it works with the Integrity Commissioner, but I think the town, the municipality has the right to request a similar report that the complainant receives.
Thank you for that, Councillor. I agree that we're paying the bill. We should see the results of these investigations. I see Councillor Olson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CAO. What is the nature of the engagement of an Integrity Commissioner? What is the relationship with council and the town?
Thank you for the question. If I may, at the moment, the relationship is primarily contractual. council has passed a code of conduct which is required by the municipal act. So you do that by bylaw. So you created a code of conduct to which each of you is held or judged as against. And then beyond that, Pelham went out. So this predates my employment, and the previous council went out through an RFP process. And I can't tell you whether or not it was a joint RFP. I can tell you that it happened at the exact same time as several other municipalities in the region of Niagara. And all those municipalities that participated ended up with the same integrity commissioner. So whether it was formally a joint or not, that was the end result. To go to the heart of Councillor Hildebrand's proposed amendment to the motion. Staff would be happy to bring back, you have some legitimate concerns. I can tell you that generally speaking, when legal bills come in, the clerk's office, now the town solicitor and the CAO tend to review them because we conjunctively between us tend to understand roughly how many hours of work is required for some of the tasks that are typically described therein. But when you don't get a report, it becomes very difficult to assess the reasonableness of a bill. And therefore, staff aren't able to discharge that function. And you, in turn, when you assess my performance, staff can't do it, so I can't assess them in that, and you can't assess me in safeguarding the public purse and reviewing those items when they have so little detail. So we'd certainly be happy to come back with a report that has some options. The item, I guess what I would caution us on is we believe there is one complaint to the Integrity Commissioner currently outstanding. So I would advise strongly against us looking to make any rule changes while that remains the case. I think this is absolutely best done when there are which is most of the time, frankly. You've been in office, call it 2.5 years for easy math. And we've probably had, 3 months, 4 months of period of time where there have been complaints before the Integrity Commissioner. So it's a minority of the time when you look at the whole of your service. So we don't normally try to change the rules while the game is afoot. We wait till after that. So certainly we could start working on a report, but I wouldn't want to deliver a report while something was outstanding. Would be a piece of advice, one. And secondly, we'll look and it would come in a report as to whether or not we felt we could change the current contract. Because ultimately, when there's a contract between two parties, typically to change it, you need the agreement of both parties. It's a broad statement of the law. However, our current contract expires March 31st of next calendar year. So it's got less than a year to go now. And regardless of what the answer, the staff advice is on the capacity to change the current contract, certainly there'd be a capacity to change the rules before going to an RFP for provision of service next year. So this is an opportune time to look at the system as a whole. Certainly think that's a good idea, and we'd like to come back. I'm sure the clerk, the town solicitor, and I would be interested in providing you with some options. I think those potentially exist, but I would suggest that this not come back certainly in June, and I'm not clear why July would be, and I think some people may be able to take some vacation time come July, so perhaps August or even September would still allow us to make changes, provide you with options, you to make decisions, and then be able to issue an RFP for the new service prior to March 31 of next year.
Thank you for that, Mr. CAO. Councillor Olson, any other comments?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, one follow-up. So the Integrity Commissioner is an advisor to the town. Is that correct?
That is correct, but statutorily imposed. We end up choosing the person through an RFP process, but the Municipal Act does require that the position exists and that we have a relationship with one.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I see Councillor Hahn next.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure that I wholly agree with the idea of not reaching out now to see what can be done, because as the mayor just mentioned, I mean, we're paying the bill, so we ought to be able to know what we're paying for. And these bills are getting quite lofty. So it's not very transparent, and it's difficult to justify paying that kind of money when we don't know, as you just mentioned, Mr. Cribbs, we don't know what they did to equate to the amount of dollars hung on the bill. So if we're not able to discern how much time and effort has gone into something, then we also don't know if the bill we're getting is anywhere near accurate. That's a problem. And I don't know that waiting a period of time, August or what have you, is justified. For me, that seems to be something that should be remedied now. If we're paying the bill, we should be making sure that it's an amount that's owing now, as soon as possible. So yeah, I understand where you're at, but I think I have a difference of opinion in that regard. So I guess I'd want to hear from my other fellow councillors.
Okay, thank you. I see Councillor Kaur.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO. I appreciate the information you told us that this one was slightly under $20,000, if I'm not mistaken. But we still didn't get the information of the cost of the very first one.
Mr. CAO?
Well, sorry, I don't have instantaneous access to that figure, but it's possible our treasurer or deputy treasurer might be able to figure that out during the course of this meeting. And if not, I'm certainly happy to provide that to council. We can provide you with the quantums of the bills and what's been spent on this item thus far into the year. I don't have that instantly available to me, but it's not, it's publicly available information. And I see Ms. Quinlan is logged in, so possibly she got access to that budget, that part of the ledger.
Ms. Quinlan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we can definitely get the number and send it out to council. Like right now, we don't have it. We just said we can send it out. This is for 2020 or to date? Do you want to date 2020?
What I'm asking is, excuse me, I'm sorry. What I'm asking is, we got the number of less than $20,000 for the second Integrity Commission report, but we didn't get a number for the first one. We just want to know the number, what it costs us to what did it cost us for the first commission?
We'll be happy to provide that. I'm sorry I can't answer this exact moment, but
no disrespect, I asked that about a month ago.
Thank you, Councillor. Good. Council will look forward to those figures as soon as possible, Mr. CEO and Ms. Quinlan. I see Councillor, I'm sorry, Councillor Kaur, are you finished?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Cribbs or to the treasurer. When we get an invoice, is it broken down like into billable hours like you would get from a lawyer, or they just bill you like for the job?
Mr. CAO?
I would describe it as a hybrid in between. It is typically broken down into number of hours, but there's less detail than we get typically in our legal bills, which will usually explain the specific service, the amount of time for specific services or parts of, say, a legal action or a legal service. We don't get that level of detail.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stewart. Any other comments or questions on the motion put forward by Councillor Hildebrand? Not seeing any. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you. This would be for the amendment. I just want clarity from Councillor Hildebrand if it is his intent to have the report back for the June 21st date, or if he was going to amend that to push it out slightly.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Here you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I will agree to push it out to August of 2021.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So for that amendment, I would start the vote with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
The amendment passes. We would then go to the main motion as amended. Unless there's any discussion
Any discussion on the main motion
as amended.
as amended? Sorry. Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
I would start the vote again with Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Hahn,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Councillor Kaur,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes?
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, and that does pass. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring us to our next item of business, which is the reports from members of council. And for our first report from members of council, we do have Councillor Olson's agenda item. If Councillor Olson wishes, he may begin his presentation.
Councillor Olson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I had the privilege of attending a program or a program put on by the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, paid for by the town of Pelham, on climate change and asset management. And this was a very detailed program that we covered low impact development and steps that could be taken, best practices that we could take in our town to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases and get to the biggest challenge we're probably going to face as a society in the next century. And the dominant question is going to be how to get the net zero emissions. And we're actually right at this time spending about 20% of the amount of money and effort that we should be spending to get there. One of the things that, if you look at the charts I provided in the agenda, there's one for solar energy, and it's called Solar Ready. And this is a program that is intended to new build houses, new build residences to supply, to build the houses so that you can readily install solar powered water heaters and appliances, and how you build the house up and how you build it up with power walls. And I've submitted this report. It's called Solar Ready Guidelines, and I passed those on to Ms. Weens, and she says that she's going to make them available to builders and developers. There was another part of it was with the use of electric vehicles and building the services into houses as a new build. These rules were at one time were in the building code, as I understand it, and they are no longer. But they should be considered when we're building new developments, and I've supplied them as well. I think these are the kinds of steps that we're going to have to take to reduce the runoff of water and restore our water table and reduce the amount of emissions we have. And so I was pleased to have that opportunity to attend that and report back that it was a very worthwhile event. I think it's going to be something that's going to be very useful when we get our asset management program in place sometime this year, when we can apply some of the rules to that. But I just wanted to say that I appreciated the opportunity to go there because it was paid for by the residents of the town, and I think I found it very worthwhile and kind of stimulating and exciting to see what could be done. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much for that report, Councillor Olson. I see Councillor Wink. Any comments on this?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question to the Director of Public Works. At one point, we had a contract position to deal with climate change. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, was that not extended, that contract, through the COVID period? And when would we be receiving a report from that individual?
Director of Public Works, Jason Marr.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The contract, we were able to extend that contract position until December 10th of this year. So that position is still with the town, and we are currently preparing a report to come to council in June with the presentation of the climate change adaptation plan.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question, Councillor Wink. Any other comments on Councillor Olson's report? If not, I'll turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that Councillor Olson's report regarding climate change and asset management be received for information. As there was no more discussion, I'd start the vote with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, and that does carry. Our next councillor report is from Councillor Hahn, and she has advised me that she does have a motion put forward from herself, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that Councillor Stewart be and is hereby appointed to the Transportation Steering Committee in replacement of Councillor Hahn, effective immediately. Councillor Hahn, if you wish to further discuss.
Sure, to the mayor. So the Transportation Steering Committee, the Niagara Region Committee, they always have their meetings mid-morning on a weekday, and that is troublesome for someone that is trying to work a regular schedule. So it's becoming challenging to always have perfect attendance. And so rather than not make these meetings, I'm doing the responsible thing here and passing on this position on this committee to hopefully Councillor Stewart, if that's the will of council.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hahn. And Councillor Stewart, obviously you volunteered and are ready to take on this added responsibility?
Yes, I'm able to do that. You know, I have no set schedule for the things that I need to get done, so it's not an issue for me to take on a meeting in the mornings.
The benefit of semi-retirement. Thank you, Councillor. Any comments on this appointment from any councillors? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. For this vote, I would begin with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, and that carries. Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, I do see that CAO Cribbs has his hand up.
Oh, Mr. CAO.
If I may, Your Worship, I have an answer to Councillor Kaur's inquiry regarding cost.
Yeah, of course.
And as a shout out, as extremely skilled as the town's corporate services division is, the answer was actually obtained by the town's new deputy clerk, Sarah Leach. So, shout out to Miss Leach, making me look good or less bad, as the case may be. As council, that we have, we've just received one bill for a little shy of $20,000, 19,000 and change. Closer to 20 than to 19, and there are two prior bills for this calendar year, one 14,715 and the other 2,175. So 2,175 plus 14,715 takes you to just shy of 17,000 even, plus another almost 20,000 even. A little bit shy of 37,000 expenditure on the year.
Thank you for that, Mr. CAO. And Councillor Kaur, what was your original question? Go ahead, sir.
I appreciate the answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. That does bring us to item 10.2. This is staff reports on the agenda. Our first item, which is 10.2.1, we have a motion put forth by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hahn, and it's be it resolved that Council receive report 2021-0084 2020 year-end building department report for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, after reading this report, any questions or comments on this report? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I begin the vote with Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that motion carries. Mr. Mayor, that brings us to our next item on the agenda, and I have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt, and it's be it resolved that Council receive Report 2021-0087-2020 Reserve and Reserve Fund Report for information, and that Council direct the 2020 Annual Treasurer's Statement of Reserve Funds for Development Charges and 2020 Annual Treasurer's Parkland Dedication Reserve Fund Statement be made available to the public upon request. Through you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay. Again, after viewing this agenda item, any questions or comments by members of council? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the vote, I'll begin with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that carries. That brings us to our next item on the agenda, and there's a motion put forth by Councillor Kaur, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2021-0080 Corporate Services December 2020 Financial Report for information. Mr. Mayor, to you for discussion.
Okay. After reading this report, any questions or comments to staff? And while we're waiting, I see Teresa, the treasurer, has a comment. Go ahead, Ms. Quinlan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to highlight to everyone that, tonight you've received the 2020 financial statements that's received earlier. And I just want to clarify that those statements are done on an accrual basis. What you're seeing right now, this December report, this is in comparison to the town's budget. This is the budget that you approved, and this is done on a modified cash basis. So what that means is that it's different than the accrual basis. So this report is important because this is the budget that this is what you're used to seeing, and I just wanted to highlight the difference between the financial statements and the modified cash basis of this report that you have.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Any other questions? Don't see any. If my notes are correct, perhaps something for the CAO. In this report, it stated the amount of lease money we pay out, which, according to my, and I don't know if this is to you or the Public Works, or perhaps it's to the treasurer. I thought maybe I'd start with you, Mr. CAO, because you've worked in other municipalities. So we pay about $85,000 in lease payments. Is that for a municipality the size of us? Should we be striving to get that down through more equipment ownership, or what? I'd like to know your thoughts on that.
Everywhere I've worked has done a financial analysis, on fleet and equipment rental, and the answers, fundamentally, the right answer is different for each one, due to their size, their needs, etc. I'd certainly like, so I can't tell you that there's a percentage that's too high of your operating budget that on lease that's too much, or a lot of it has to do with one's philosophy. And is ownership a better thing? Well, you also have to look at, we have a fleet mechanic, for instance, who's able to fix a number of things. That analysis changes depending on how big you are and how many mechanics you do or don't have, et cetera. So it's hard to give you a straight answer. There's absolutely a way to do a business analysis, and frankly, I've been here for 2 budgets, and I've seen at least some evidence that satisfies me that sort of thought process has been engaged in the past by this management team and by some of our predecessors. Beg pardon. That being said, if that's an interest or an area council would like us to explore in the future, we'll certainly provide one for you. It's hard to say what the right answer. The other thing is how much, as KPMG made it clear, we store most of our equipment outside, which is absolutely it's the worst municipal practice, not close to a best practice. And so that argues in favor of rental or lease, so that you're not leaving your expensive equipment to rust over the winter, or even outside if you're using it during the winter. So there are a bunch of different things that have to be unique to your circumstances. It's hard to give you a straight answer other than to try to identify some of the factors. With that, I'll stop talking, and we have both a financial expert and an operations person here on the call who I'm sure have other things to add.
Thank you. And before I do, I will go to the Director of Public Works. As you pointed out, Mr. CEO, it is a difficult question and has lots of different ways to look at it. I know that in agricultural business, you pay a lease, whether it be for 4 years, and there's a lot to be said. At the end of the 4 years, that piece of machinery goes out, and you have a new piece of machinery come in, and you don't have huge maintenance bills. I'll turn to Director of Public Works. Jason, any thoughts on this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree with the CAO's comments. Again, depends on size and your requirements. With respect to some of our leases as well, it's for some specialized equipment that we use seasonally. So that's another thing to consider. But yeah, this is something that definitely, if council wishes, that could be explored more to look at options of leasing versus purchasing. Okay. Absolutely.
Thank you. And we'll go one more person to the financial. Is there any tax break, Madame Treasurer, whether leasing or purchasing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what you have to consider when you're leasing a large capital equipment, whether it's a capital lease, and if it is a capital lease, then we would have to definitely bring it back to council for approval because it will impact the debt of the town. So right now, the leases that we have, as the Director of Public Works mentioned, there are specific ones, seasonal pieces of equipment, or if something breaks down and we need another piece of equipment quickly, we'll lease that. We have some leases that are just, for the summer and month to month, and that's it, because we don't need them for the other 8 months of the year. So I think in those situations, it definitely makes sense to lease those pieces of equipment so they're not sitting around for 8 months. But we have looked at it in the past, the lease, versus purchase. And right now, we receive really good prices because we purchase with the region and with the fleet and their prices. So sometimes it does make more sense just for us to purchase the equipment. And we also keep the fleet a longer period of time. Like the useful life of the piece of equipment is usually beyond the expected life because we do have a mechanic on staff that keeps that machinery going. So we definitely have looked at it in the past, but we can look at it for other future purchases as well.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate the comments from all staff members on this. Any other comments? We'll move on. Not seeing any comments, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the vote, I will begin with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Counselor Kaur,
Yes.
Counselor Olson,
Yes?
Mayor Junkin,
Yes.
and that carries. Mr. Mayor, we're on to our next item of business, and we have a motion put forth by Counselor Hahn, seconded by Counselor Wink. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2021-0082 Corporate Services March 2021 Financial Reports for information. Mr. Mayor, to you for discussion.
Okay. After viewing this agenda item, any comments or questions on this report? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I begin the vote for this one with Counselor Wink,
Yes.
Counselor Hahn,
Yes.
Counselor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Counselor Kaur,
Yes.
Counselor Olson,
Yes?
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, and that carries. Mr. Mayor, we have our next item of business. We have a motion put forth by Counselor Stewart, seconded by Counselor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2021-0091 Meridian Community Center Spectator Video Streaming Arena and Gymnasium Report for information.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions right off the bat? I see Counselor Olson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Van Wavensway. Now, I see that we have the streaming service at $9.99 a month for the gyms and the arenas. We spoke previously about the Accursi room, having something in the Accursi room so we could see presentations from there at home. Is that part of the same arrangement with the supplier, or is that something to come?
Ms.
I'm sorry.
Wavensway?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, that's a separate program. This specifically is for the basically sports or anything that's going on in the gyms or on the rinks. It's so the parents, especially now during COVID, we're not allowed spectators. They're able to stream and pay either monthly or for the year to watch their children. The Accursi room is a different program. The provider would never, it wouldn't be beneficial for the provider to supply the equipment in the Accursi room.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Olson?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so we would be paying or subsidizing in some way that for example, for seniors events? That would be the plan?
Ms. Wavensway?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. At the last meeting, no, actually it's in the capital budget that we would be purchasing the equipment and there would be no charge to the seniors for the live streaming, because that is our programs.
Okay. Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on the MCC report? Not seeing any. Might turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote begins with Counselor Hahn,
Yes.
Counselor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Counselor Kaur,
Yes.
Counselor Olson,
Yes?
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Wink,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin,
Yes.
and that carries. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are now at item 10.2.6, and I have a motion put forth by Counselor Olson, seconded by Counselor Kaur. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2021-0056 Traffic Signal Maintenance Agreement with the Niagara Region for information, and that Council approve the Traffic Signal Maintenance Agreement with the Regional Municipality of Niagara, and that Council authorize the renewal of the Traffic Signal Maintenance Agreement with the Regional Municipality of Niagara through the Town of Pelham's Director of Public Works on an annual basis, and that the Town Clerk be directed to prepare the necessary bylaw in accordance with this agreement. Through you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this report? Not seeing any. I will turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll begin this vote with Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Councillor Kaur,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Hahn,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, and that carries. Mr. Mayor, that does bring us to our next item on the agenda, which is item 10.2.7. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2021-0099, request from City of St. Catharines for Town of Pelham consent to proceed with fish habitat compensation project in 12 Mile Creek for information, and that Council consent to the request from the City of St. Catharines to proceed with a fish habitat compensation project in 12 Mile Creek in the Town of Pelham. Mr. Mayor, through you for discussion.
And before I turn to the council, I just have if I may, I would like to attempt to clarify just what's going on here. So the City of St. Catharines did some work on their lakeshore property that they have, and that particular work was not being looked upon favorably by the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and so in order to let them do that work, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans said, you're going to have to spend $250,000 on a conservation project in Niagara, and then we will allow you to do this project. So this, the St. Catharines Council got in touch with Trout Unlimited. They obviously have a large part of the 12 Mile Creek that flows through St. Catharines. And they really wanted to spend this money in St. Catharines if they could have, but Trout Unlimited brought forward to them that they would like to see that money spent from St. Catharines on a project in Pelham. So, and that project, as outlined, is the bypassing the Cannery Pond, which is on private property. That's not on town property. We have nothing to do with this project. All we have to do, and in order to spend the money in another municipality, St. Catharines has got to have our permission to spend the $250,000 here. That's all they're asking for us. We don't do anything about the project. The project itself, when it does come to fruition, it will be subject to public meetings. It will be. It will go through the NCPA and Minister of the Environment. Again, the town of Pelham will have nothing with this project. All that's being asked of us is to give our consent to have the City of St. Catharines and Trout Unlimited to do this work in our municipality for $250,000. So that's, and so it's not a case of us. I know a citizen has raised some questions. It's not a question of us deciding whether we should do the Cannery project or the Rice Road. These are two completely different projects decided by two completely different bodies. The town has nothing to do with the Cannery project, whereas the Willa Council, we are the main ones running the Rice Road project. Again, I just want to reiterate, that's all they're asking us is for the permission for the City of St. Catharines to spend $250,000 on a stream project that Trout Unlimited and the DFO has deemed to be a beneficial project to the stream. So that's all we're here to do, is to say, yes, if you want to spend your money in our municipality, we're welcoming, by all means, do it. It's going to be looked at by the proper authorities, and it will go ahead only if it meets strict specifications set down by those governing bodies. So knowing that, I'll just open this now to any comments or questions by members of council. Councilor Hildebrandt.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that introduction. The questions I have now, start with the Director of Public Works. Obviously, it's a St. Catharines issue. It's not our issue. They're pouncing the ball. It looks like they did it last Monday to us to make a decision. So it gives us very little time to answer residents' questions, number one. Number two is the fact that from this motion, I understand that St. Catharines will be responsible, and basically our Director of Public Works or our municipality will have no oversight or responsibility for it. Is that correct, Director of Public Works?
Director of Public Works?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is a correct statement. Town of Pelham Engineering Department Public Works will not have any involvement with this project.
So then my question becomes this. Why would I allow another municipality to carry out a project where I give up all my rights as a community, no inspection, no oversight, no transparency, and yet I have to answer to the residents why all these different things are going on? When the residents say, that one resident particularly told me that he has not been talked to, and City of St. Catharines' letter said they talked to the residents and had all their approval. I had another professional resident send me a note asking me a dozen questions, which I have yet to try and figure out answers to. So I have residents contacting me asking for direct questions, and obviously the City of St. Catharines is going to have all the answers. I don't see how that works. To me, we have to have oversight or some contract so that we get involved, so that us as councillors can get answers to questions, not having to get a hold of St. Catharines to get answers.
I will, again, Councillor, this isn't happening on town property. It's happening between a government agency and a private landowner. For further clarification, I will turn to the CAO.
I'll catch that grenade.
Well,
and try to answer it in a neutral fashion. Look, importantly, so I sat in on the call with St. Catharines. There's just a legal technicality that has this before you at all, in that there's something in the Municipal Act that prohibits municipalities from spending in other municipalities on sort of projects, and that's basically to protect taxpayers in simple terms. What matters here, though, is that beyond the fact that it's two environmental organizations, they don't have, they have a vision, but they don't have any sort of as-built drawings, they haven't put an application in anywhere. Really what's being asked is, at this point in time, do we consent to allow St. Catharines to give $250,000 to one or two environmental organizations, but private organizations in this community? They will then have to go through an application process to do the kind of works they're talking about, and that will be the Conservation Authority and the Provincial Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. So whatever work they do, they'll need government approval. We're just not that government. And while citizens may have questions for you, you're not supposed to have answers because it's not a town project. This is sort of like asking, well, what's the strategic plan for the Legion? Or Beamer's Hardware, or Cayman Kettle, all proud members of this community, but none of our business how they're going to go forward into the future. So this is before you tonight on a mere technicality that we drafted before you because we assumed the answer would simply be yes. Ultimately, it allows an environmental organization to receive $250,000 and then try to go through a process to do work it thinks is good. If the Conservation Authority disagrees, because it is jurisdictions, because they're navigable waters, it won't happen. If the province has problems with it, it won't happen. But any work they do won't come to the town because we have no skin in the game, other than it does happen to be within our geographic boundaries.
Thank you for that, Mr. CAO. Councillor Hildebrand?
Yeah. Well, see, I still have a big problem with it because it is within our jurisdiction and it is on our town property. It's just like having a neighbor come on my property and doing work.
It is not on town property, sir.
No, I know it. It's in the town's property. I know we don't own it, but it's within the municipality of Pelham. And therefore, we're responsible in my view.
Well, I think what the CAO is saying is that there's going to be a lot better people looking at this project than, and this is no slam at staff. I mean, sorry, Jason, but there's going to be a lot more educated people looking at this project, conservation-wise and engineering-wise, than what our town staff is used to doing on a project like this. That's all we can say, Councillor Hildebrand. Any other comments before I move to other one?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Really, you're saying I'm not going to have any answers to give any people. Really, that's essentially what you're telling me. And I don't agree with your opinion. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, like I say, answers on this project, when it does move along, there will be a public meeting, but they're best to either address those questions to the NCPA, Trout Unlimited, or Department of Fisheries and Oceans, who will be looking after this program. Anyway, I see Councillor Kaur.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Would these meetings be in Pelham or would they have to go to St. Catharines?
I have, I'm sorry, Mr. Kaur, or Councillor Kaur, I have no idea where those meetings will be held. I would imagine because it's in Pelham, Mr. CAO, do you think it would be correct that it's our jurisdiction, that it would be in Pelham? Would you hazard a guess?
No, I feel like I've gone out on enough of a limb. No way to know where those meetings will be.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kaur, another question?
Is there a way of deferring this for a while and get a better understanding of what's happening and maybe getting more input from our residents that have an impact to it?
I don't know. Myself, I don't know what the, I guess if somebody wants to put that to council, we'll vote on it. Myself, like we've said, all we're asking is to give St. Catharines permission under government supervision to spend money in our jurisdiction. We will not have any input. We will not have any oversight. If citizens have concerns, the NCPA, Trout Unlimited, or Minister of the Environment, all those government agencies will have a foot in this project. Pelham will not have anything to do with it. It's not on our land, it's on private land. So that's all I can reiterate. Councillor Wink.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. More or less a legal question, and maybe Mrs. Sturton can help me out on this. I assume that the Cannery Pond has been there for a considerable amount of time, well before any of us would have realized when this was going in. I assume also that the landowners would have had to have approval to put the pond in. Currently, the stream goes through to that pond, and the property owner is happy that that's going on at this point in time. If we provide consent and that property owner of the Cannery Pond finds that his pond deteriorates because of lack of stream water going in there, does he have a case against the town of Pelham regarding the impact on his lands?
And before I go to the lawyer, let me just say that I know for a fact, again, the property owner, for this project to go ahead, the property owner has got to give his consent. They can't go on his land and do whatever they want. So he has the bottom controlling act. But Ms. Sturton, go ahead with the council's question.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Wink, I was going to make the first point that Mayor Junkin has made. Firstly, that the project can only proceed if the owner of the pond consents to it proceeding. So that is a future step to be taken by the City of St. Catharines, is my understanding. Insofar as a potential claim against the town, I think that the answer to that question comes from the very limited involvement of the town in this project. As we've indicated, all that's being asked for is a consent to have them operate or spend this money within the geographic boundaries of the town of Pelham, albeit on private property. And in the event that something were to go wrong, if the owner were to rescind his consent or something went sideways, the claim of that property owner would be as against Trout Unlimited or the City of St. Catharines. On the facts as I understand them, I can't see any basis for a claim against the town.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hahn?
Through the mayor, yes, I have 3 questions. First one is, has the Nature Conservancy been involved in this process? And if so, how? I didn't read any information in the report with regards to them being involved, but perhaps that was just an oversight.
Mr. CAO, have you heard if they're involved in this one?
I would attribute that to oversight on our part. This was written in a span of hours. We had a meeting on Monday and the published deadline is Tuesday. So I'll own that as a mea culpa. Neither group was on the phone call we were involved with, but both are referenced throughout, and I understand have been working together on the project itself. Mr. Marr has had longer involvement in this file than have I. I'm sure he can confirm that or add some detail that I don't have.
Mr. Marr?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So with respect to the Nature Conservatory's involvement with the project to date, I can't comment on that. One thing I can comment on is that I've had some discussions with the Director of Engineering Services with the City of St. Catharines. And they will have to go through the application process, as was stated earlier. They will be having agreements in place with all the private property owners that are affected or impacted by the project. That will happen. One thing I had my hand up, so one of the things I wanted to mention was with respect to timing. I have not confirmed this, but through discussions with the Director of Engineering with the City of St. Catharines, there is most likely in-water working restrictions, which limit the period of time that you can actually perform this construction work between July and August. So on a timing side of things, that's where that stands with respect to actually being able to perform the work, would be in that window between July and the end of August. Just throw that out there for.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Director. I see Councillor Wink.
Well, actually,
I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry, Councillor. Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, the reason I asked that is they're a key stakeholder, right, with the Lathrop property there. So they definitely should be involved and hopefully have been all along. The other point I wanted to mention is just because some of the adjacent landowners have not been contacted, contrary to, I guess, the report that says St. Catharines has reached out, just wanting to ensure that they are kept abreast of all the information because their property actually touches this property that we're talking about, right? So just like if there's any development, we always want to ensure that neighboring properties are notified and have an opportunity to be involved. Just making sure that will be in fact something that happens. And the third point I wanted to mention, fully recognizing that this is a project that's been already selected as a potential to move ahead based on information that was provided by a professional in this area. And it's probably the same individual that you're thinking of, Mr. Mayor, that you alluded to earlier. Because there's the Rice Road and 20 existing issue we already have, which affects the water temperature, which affects the trout and so on and so forth. And the Trout Unlimited is involved and encouraging us to tackle that. Just wondering, based on the timing, if there's an opportunity, because we only just talked about that issue, within the past few weeks, if there's an opportunity to perhaps spend this $250,000 that has to be spent in the town, if there's an opportunity to look at that, because that is a seemingly more the way it's been put, basically it's much larger than the Cannery Pond, it's a greater depth, the water capacity is significantly higher, and so on, that this could be an issue that might need to be remedied sooner than the one that is being proposed in this other area. And just because there's an overlap, and St. Catharines would have not necessarily known about this other project, is there an opportunity to say, hey, St. Catharines, you might not know that there's this other issue we have that is more timely, dare I say, hey, let's fill you in on this. Is there an opportunity to do this?
In talks with Trout Unlimited officials, they were asked by the city of St. Catharines, and they knew that we were looking after the Rice Road was already being fixed, and Trout Unlimited Canada out of Guelph and the local affiliations or local members, just because of the $250,000, suggested this, the Cannery project, because it's been one that they've been thinking of for many, many years. And again, it's two different projects. And from what I hear, and from what I'm hearing from Trout Unlimited, it will go forward as two different projects. The one way that we will benefit is that the same engineering firm that is working at Lathrop is probably going to be bidding, and anything can happen in a tender. They will be working on the Rice Road. But as far as Trout Unlimited Canada and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, they are looking at that as two completely different projects. Councillor Olson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, looking at working from document page 9, it describes work in 2021 as being a procurement of an agreement with the NCC, topographic survey of the site, soil sampling, detailed bypass channel design, and acquisition of permits. That's in 2021. And in 2022 is construction of the bypass channel. 23, 24, and one other subsequent year. This is post-construction monitoring, including monitoring upstream and downstream temperatures, annual fish survey upstream and downstream at the Cannery Pond, monitoring the continuing stability of the bypass channel, and preparation of an annual report to DFO and other agencies. So it sounds to me like there's plenty of consultation and plenty of design and plenty of money there for those types of works. So I feel fairly content in putting this, moving forward with this, because I think there's no shovels going in the ground until all those things are done.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions, comments? I see Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. One of my concerns is that landowners that'll be affected by it, being notified. And if we do agree, is there any way that we can hold the city of St. Catharines to be accountable not only to our citizens, but to us as, the corporation of the town of Pelham, by copying us on the information? Like, for example, when they get written consent from a landowner, that we're copied on that. When there's an engineering report, that we get copied on it, so that, even though we may not have direct oversight, that we all along the way know exactly what's going on. And if there's something that we as council or the town sees that we're not sure of, that we know what's going on and we can call it into question. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Mr. CEO, do you think we could put this stipulation on?
Well, I'll defer to the wisdom of council. I would simply say, though, that we need to understand that we do not have some sort of greater understanding or moral authority than any other branch of government. And in the normal course, this would be a vote yes. Of course, you can donate money to an environmental organization here in Pelham, and then it'll go through a process. And the NPCA is a competent, responsible order of government that has its own process, and we don't need to enforce that they will adhere to their own process. And the Ministry of the Environment is part of Her Majesty's government, and they have a process that also involves notification, etc., and we have every reason to assume they will do that properly. Normally what we would do is simply have a vote on this, and then there'll never be another report again, because it's private development on private land and it does not involve the town of Pelham. The normal course of business would be to refer any inquiries we get to the NPCA or the Ministry of the Environment. It wouldn't even be referring them to St. Catharines. I assume St. Catharines will have some sort of contractual control just to know that the work got done. But beyond that, St. Catharines isn't going to have any real involvement either. This is a necessary prerequisite for them doing their own work. I would submit to you that the other thing council ought to consider before you have your vote is what happens if we vote no. St. Catharines needs to move ahead with this project for their own purposes. And I think if we're at a no, I think they're going to look at another municipality to, not so much another municipality. We're informed that there's no projects that qualify in St. Catharines. So I think they're going to look for somewhere else to donate the money.
Thank you for that, Mr. CEO. I see Councillor Wink, you've had your hand up for a while.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. More to the CAO. So you mentioned that you had to get this report out very quickly. I've heard verbal presentations being made that, yes, there will be public meetings. There's got to be approvals through various agencies, and you named off a bunch. Probably would give me more comfort if we had that in the report to say, yeah, there is going to be public meetings. The public will be consulted, and all the other agency approvals that are there should be outlined in this report. If that was there, I would have a lot more comfort, because none of that's in the recommendation. So I would like to defer it until that gets put into the report.
Wow. Well, a council can do what council wishes. If we defer this, just remember, St. Catharines has got to move ahead at the order of Department of Fisheries and Oceans. They can't, whatever. Our Sub-Director of Public Works had his hand up. Jason?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So just to comment on that further. So the city of St. Catharines is looking to move forward with lakefront restoration projects within their municipality. And the DFO is requiring an agreement in place to move forward with the fish habitat compensation before they're able to proceed with those projects. So those are the projects that they're looking to get started this year, construction-wise. And the approvals and the agreements in place for their fish compensation is required in order for them to move forward those projects.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. What I don't understand is the shovels are going on the ground next year. This is nothing new for the city of St. Catharines. This seems like a last-minute effort to push this through council without having proper disclosure. I'm in full agreement with Councillor Wink. If we had all this stuff in paper, I would probably approve it. But to me, deferral is the right solution for tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Wink?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, you know, what we're asking is just tightening up the report that's presented to council. And I don't see any reason why, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. CAO, that we would likely be able to have this report back to us by next meeting where we could approve it. So, you know, if that wording were in the staff report, similar to Councillor Hildebrand, I would likely be in a position to provide consent.
Okay.
We would
CEO?
undertake to get that on the next agenda.
Okay, okay. Council Olson, did I see your hand or not? I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, Council Core.
I will second the motion from Councillor Wink.
And did you put forward a motion then, Council Wink?
Yes, so I'd like to make a motion to defer the decision or defer providing consent until the staff report gets updated with all the necessary steps with respect to all the approvals that need to be obtained by the various agencies and the public consultation.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Core, you will second that motion? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you like to read that back to us, please?
Yes, sorry, certainly, Mr. Mayor. So I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Core. Be it resolved that Council refer the report back to staff for further information with respect to necessary steps for approvals and for public consultation, and that the staff report be brought back to Council for the June 7th Council meeting. Is that what I'm hearing, Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Correct. Thank you. Unless there's further debate on that?
Any other questions? Councillor Hahn?
Through the mayor, also too, I would like an answer perhaps in the same report with regards to the nature of NCC's involvement. Yeah, I see a nod in there from Mr. Cribs, so okay, that'd be great, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments before we call the vote? Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For this vote, I will be beginning with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Core.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
No.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
No.
And that carries. Mr. Mayor, that does bring you to your next item on the agenda. It's a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hahn. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2021-0096 Second Dwelling Units, what we heard, for information. Through you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions, comments on this report? I will, if I may, I would like to start off first and ask the planning director, Ms. Weens. Interesting, I thought that it seemed out of the, I realized that it wasn't a huge number, but we did get 20 people answer the survey, and the vast majority are indeed rural people, it would seem, or would appear, at least from the Fenwick wards. And I must say that I've had at least 3 or 4 phone calls myself. I don't know if it was from the same 20 people, but there are indeed a lot of people waiting for council to move ahead on this and bring it to reality, the secondary units. I guess my question is, reading the report, I saw the region was not maybe fixated, but whatever, at 93 square feet, which is just over 1,000 square feet, which is something I can relate to more. I know that in the after the last presentation to council, we had heard from some people at that public meeting that they were hoping for a few hundred more square feet, whether it be 1,200 or 1,400. At 1,000 square feet, do you think the region, is that going to be a figure that is set in stone with the region, or how would you quantify that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, certainly we received kind of the public feedback and the comments from the region. And with respect to increasing the second dwelling unit size in the agricultural area, there was some discussions about, allowing for something larger than 700 square feet, which was what the initial proposal was. And so understanding that the second dwelling units are still supposed to be secondary and subordinate to the main dwelling, and within 1,000 square feet, you can certainly have a reasonable size home. Could be 2 bedrooms, or it could even be 2 bedrooms with a den. And then it would allow for, income, or it would allow for someone to have aging parents in there, or, maybe young family in there. So that seems to be something that would provide some flexibility. And in the discussions, that seems to be something that we're looking at. If there is going to be, if somebody wants to do something larger than 1,000 square feet, then there is an opportunity for them to make an application to amend, and then you review it on a case-by-case basis. In all circumstances, it might not always be appropriate. In some circumstances, it could be. So we're trying to be reasonable, and we're trying to provide flexibility. But the notion is that these second dwelling units are supposed to be, subordinate to the main dwelling. It's not to have 2 principal dwellings on one lot.
Okay, thank you for that. If I may, one other question. So the 1,000 square feet, these secondary dwellings will be allowed to have basements in them also, I believe?
Yes, if they're a standalone building, they'd be allowed to have a basement for sure.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just thinking that when grandkids visit from out of town, that's the only time that maybe the 1,000 should be a little bigger. But I appreciate the planning and the region's thought process in this. Thank you. Any other, I see Councillor Kaur.
Mr. Mayor, to the CAO, would the property tax go up on individuals that put in a second dwelling unit, or their property tax stays the same?
Well, generally speaking, you need building permits to do construction. Building permits tend to result in notification to MPAC. MPAC makes an assessment of change in value or not to a property, and then that comes back to us, and ultimately we apply the mill rate to our tax rate, and you get your property taxes. So it's certainly, it's absolutely foreseeable. Particularly, I would think it's far more likely where you're building like a bunkie, like a secondary dwelling unit that's physically separated, because that seems self-evidently you're adding value to the property, be it for rental income or family, as the case may be. I'm less familiar with whether or not that will drive up the value of a property if you make it internal in what's traditionally been referred to as a granny suite. Ms. Wiens might have more experience with that, but I would guess that in both cases it would drive the value of the property upwards.
Good, thank you.
Any comment on that, Director of Planning, Ms. Wiens?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. No, I think the CAO hit it on the mark. It's, the improvements would likely result in an increase in the value of the dwelling, whether those improvements are internal to the dwelling or as a standalone building or structure. So if it's increasing the value of the property, then likely down the road, we will see an increase in the property tax.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Wink.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director. Are we looking at doing 2 sets of rules for second dwelling units, one for the urban area and one for the rural area? Because it seems that there's a bit of a difference between the two, even just the small sample size and survey. Those who answered the questionnaire from rural agricultural properties, 7 out of 7 were in favor. In the urban area, 5 people were against and 4 people were for this. But anyway, are we looking at different types of allowances for these units in different types of locations?
Mr. Mayor, through you, thank you for that question. We are And we're looking at, allowing for a larger second dwelling unit in the rural agricultural area because you tend to have more space and greater separation between adjoining properties, and that in the urban area, your lot sizes are smaller and there's closer neighbors. And so we're looking at only allowing for a smaller second dwelling unit in the urban area. Again, that's not to say that somebody couldn't apply if there is, a unique circumstance that in the urban area where a larger second dwelling unit could work. We would look at it, and they may need to go through some type of a process, such as a minor variance, to allow for something larger. But it's not to say that it couldn't happen. I think, again, we want to provide, protection to the residents. We're still trying to fit in with the character. And again, same in the rural area, these second dwelling units are supposed to be subordinate to the main dwelling unit. We're not looking at allowing two main dwelling units on one property in the residential area either.
Councillor?
Thank you, Director.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this report? To the director, I was kind of surprised, to tell you the honest truth, about I think the report even said to the vast majority, we're looking at basement apartments as opposed to build-ons. I found that kind of a little on the surprising side. Any comments that you may wish to have on that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, that's the feedback that we received. And I think it just goes to the notion that it's probably somewhat easier to do an internal renovation than to build an entirely new structure and to accommodate that on one's property. So I think, that's the sense that we're getting, at least from the feedback that we've gotten.
Okay, thank you very much for that. If I don't see any other comments or questions, I shall turn to the clerk. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, this motion will, we'll start with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that carries. Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. That does bring us to our next item on the agenda, and I have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2021-0098 Park Place South Draft Plan of Subdivision for Zoning Bylaw Amendment Supplementary Report for information as it pertains to file numbers 26T9-02-20 and AM-08-20, and that Council ratify the motion approved on March 22nd, 2021 to reconfigure blocks 35 to 39 to allow 4 units versus 8 units with a minimum 3-meter side yard for the Park Place South subdivision. And that Council directs planning staff to prepare the bylaw for approval of the zoning bylaw amendment for Council's consideration at the next Council meeting. And that Council provide the draft plan of subdivision and conditions of draft plan approval as contained in Appendix A and B to this report. Through you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions, discussion on this item? I see Councillor Wink.
So I will not be supporting the draft plan for the following reasons. To approve the plan as presented will undeniably result in an LPAT application which will likely overturn Council's decision and cost the taxpayers approximately $40,000. Approving this amendment does not meet intensification targets, which is contrary to our official plan. 3, the public had no objection to the original plan. There were no comments at all. Number 4, the developer did their due diligence to determine that the back-to-back townhouses would be a viable option for entry-level buyers. They did the research. They're the ones who are taking the risk on constructing these. I firmly believe it's not up to councillors to base their decisions on personal biases regarding such things as building design, outdoor space, etc. Councillors should also be aware that a park is to be built in close proximity to this subdivision. 6, finally, I still support the staff supplement report of May 3rd, 21 and the recommendations therein.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We are at the draft plan of subdivision and condition of draft plan approval as contained in Appendix A and B originally. But typically, the developer of the plan of subdivision is not the builder. A developer cannot sell lots to builders until a final approval of the subdivision and plan has been registered. Therefore, my approval of the proposed motion establishes the zoning standards for setbacks as recommended in the planning recommendation report. See, there's a whole bunch of reports that are attached to this motion, and I want to get down to the critical issue of where my issue really is. Here we are, and my concerns are that I'll not support the motion as presented either. Because the issue I have is if I approve the report as presented, I am approving the proposed zoning standards and setbacks for back-to-back townhouses as proposed by the town. If Mountain View, for some reason, only decided to become a developer and sold the lots to a builder based on the planning department's recommendation report for setbacks, the builder could submit plans that meet these conditions. In my view, these variances are not minor or suggested in the report. So basically, what I'm saying is the fact that when you have the planning recommendation report, which was the original report presented to us, it was presented as having minor variances, and there were 37 variances. Now, to me, when I received the detailed information from Mountain View, I don't have a problem with their setbacks on their back-to-backs nor their arrangement of back-to-backs. Their setbacks for back-to-back space is 11.7 meters. The town of planning report, recommendation report, had 4 meters. The Mountain View building garage door is 12.7 meters. The town planning report is 6 meters. To me, I can't reconcile these reports. So my solution was to send the report back to staff to have it reconciled to Mountain View's standards. Because basically, when I look at it, I'll approve Mountain View standards, but I won't approve the town of Pelham's planning department standards. And then I want to go on to Appendix B, because one of the things in Appendix B it talks about is street lights. I took a look and asked a question about street lights because one of the things that really concerns me is I've been looking at street lights on the UCC committee. Basically, we don't define in Appendix B what the street light should be, but the fact is it comes down to the engineering standards. And our engineering standards basically tell us on the lantern style, we have 3 options or reviewed equipment. For the pendant style, we have 2 options or reviewed equipment. If you drive through the town of Pelham, you actually can get pictures of 9 different street lights that we have. And LED lights get replaced, the whole top of the pole together. So I think in Appendix B, that has to be tightened up, just in general, not necessarily for this report, because it's so significant. When you look at the city of Welland, they have a particular fixture called an RP8 with a variable light set level, and they actually told me, I think it's a Philips light. So they don't go around making all kinds of different lights. You drive to the MCC, there's 4 different lights. Now I know this may seem minor with regards to this report, but their difference in cost is from $800,000, they've gone to $300,000 a year in light fixture maintenance and electricity savings. And that's $500,000. So I hope you can understand that basically I'm agreeing with Mountain View's design for these back-to-backs, but I'm not agreeing with the planning department's report.
Before I go to Council Olson, Ms. Weens, any comments on Councilor Hildebrand's?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the setbacks that were quoted in the original staff report were based on what was requested at the time we received the application. And typically at this stage, we do not have building permit designs for houses. And we established the zoning standard based on the contemporary development standards that exist. So in the back-to-back townhouses, staff were recommending a 6-meter setback for back-to-back townhouses. And then, once we received Mountain View's plans a few weeks ago, and you can, you figure out what your lot depth is and what their building depth is, it will result in a greater setback than 6 meters. And they have plotted that for you and shared that information with council on Friday last week. That's not unusual. The 6 meter is the minimum setback. The bylaw doesn't say you can't go larger, you can, but the minimum setback is 6 meters. And so that's what council is being asked to approve with this. And that's, again, pretty standard in terms of development approvals. And, is reflective of the, current development trends for townhouse developments. With respect to your commentary on the lighting and the light standards and the types of light standards that the town uses, I can't respond to that. I would have to defer to the Director of Public Works. But certainly we have our engineering standards with respect to the types of light standards. We try to minimize the different types of light standards so that we can minimize the operations and replacement costs on bulbs and so forth. So, and I know that the town is moving towards LED light standards, and that is something that happens. And again, that happens at the detailed engineering design stage of the approval process, not at this stage. So you're asking us and the developer to go through a lot of detailed engineering design way ahead of when it's typically done. And so I can appreciate that council wants to have this information, but the subdivision approval process is a 2-stage approval process where you get draft plan approval with a number of conditions, and then we work with the developer and their consulting team to address all the conditions through the detailed engineering design.
Thank you for the clarification, Ms. Weens. Councilor Kaur?
Yes, and this is to the question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO. What are the densities within the 4 other neighborhood developments of the East Side secondary plan? And are we on target with our density, on track, ahead, or behind in our goals?
Well, I'm certainly going to defer most of this to Ms. Weens. We have had a couple of conversations about whether we're generally on track, and of course you have to look at them together to be able to get that answer. Any one doesn't give you the answer properly, and I understand we are on track, but with that, if I may pass the baton over. She has far more expertise than do I.
Ms. Director of Planning, Ms. Weens?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly with every subdivision approval that we provide to council, there is an analysis with respect to density and the density targets that are established in the East Fonthill secondary plan. So there are 4 neighborhoods in the East Fonthill secondary plan. They all have different density targets. and each one of them is being met. This neighborhood or this area is designated medium density. It's the closest to the commercial area and the Meridian Community Center. And so the medium density makes sense here. And in this neighborhood, the target in the official plan is a density of 70 persons and jobs per hectare. And I believe the original proposal that was contemplated by Mountain View Homes was 69.5. And so we rounded up to 70 and it met.
Councillor Court?
Appreciate the answer, but could you give me numbers of the 4 neighborhoods? Is it 65, 55? I'd just like to know. Definitely it's not 70.
Mr. Mayor, through you, yes, I can do that. So there are the 4 neighborhoods. The Rosewood neighborhood is the lowest, and I believe that's at 44 persons and jobs per hectare. And then as you move northward through the Saffron Meadows, it's at 50 persons per jobs in hectare, as is the River Estates. And then this one is 70 persons per jobs per hectare. And so overall, the total density throughout the East Fonthill neighborhood averages at 50, and that's consistent with, again, the provincial plans and being the growth plan that we have to comply with.
Thank you for the answer.
Thank you, Councillor Kaur. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The goal is to move forward with, I believe, to approve the Mountain View plan for the Park Place subdivision. I have no problem with Mountain View's plan for the subdivision. The back-to-backs are a new development. Therefore, these standards that their planning department is suggesting of 4 meters and 6 meters is a new standard that has to be resolved, and that's an official plan consideration as far as I'm concerned.
To the Director of Planning, Ms. Weens.
Mr. Mayor, through you, the 4 meter and 6 meter setback is not for the back-to-back townhouses. That's for the street townhouses. So the back-to-back townhouses that was being recommended was 6 meters.
Councillor? I see you're looking.
I got so much data here. I've got to go back and find it. Yeah, it is six meters to the garage.
Yes, and to the front face of the back-to-back unit.
And the standard is 7.5, correct?
That's our current standard in our existing bylaw.
Correct. And that to me is a significant difference.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may, that doesn't warrant an official plan amendment because, again, the official plan just speaks to the use, which is the townhouses in all forms, and the density. And so we're meeting the density and the use in terms of townhouses. If you're going to increase the setback to 7.5 meters, what you're going to do is result in a less efficient use of land. You won't be able to get the same number of units because it changes the road depth, the road alignments, and we won't meet the density targets.
Thank you, Madam. Councillor, one last comment. Go ahead, Councillor Hildebrand.
But these are back-to-back. We've got to realize that back-to-backs are different. They have no side yard, no rear yard. So they need more space. And that's exactly what Mountain View is explaining to us. They need more space out front to provide for all the auxiliary items that you generally do at the side or backyard. That's why I have a problem with those planning department dimensions.
Mr. Mayor, through you, if I may, certainly in this case, the back-to-backs can be on a 7.5 meter setback, and it can even be slightly larger based on Mountain View's designs. They've proven that. The 6 meter is just your minimum. And in this, if council wishes us to prepare a bylaw that has a 7.5 meter setback for the back-to-back townhouses, that shouldn't be an objection because we know that their designs can work.
Thank you, Ms. Weens. One more question, and then I got to move on, Councilor Hildebrand.
Here you, Mr. Mayor. I will agree to the Mountain View design of the proposed back-to-backs for the 7.5 meter setback. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councilor. Councilor Hahn?
Through the mayor, actually, that's exactly where I was going with Councillor Hildebrand's idea, is that the 7.5, which is the current standard, seems more reasonable.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this? I see Councilor Olson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, but I understand to the director, I understand this is 11.7. And the diagram shows space for 2 7-passenger SUVs, as well as a garage that has a 7-passenger SUV in it. Is that what we're talking about here? That seems quite adequate to me in the drawing here.
Ms. Director?
Well, maybe that's not. Maybe that's more of a statement and not a question, I should say.
No.
Perhaps.
Well, perhaps Ms. Weens would like to comment on that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, I understand that Mountain View Homes has provided that level of detail to council late on Friday afternoon. And so you can see what can be accommodated given the overall depth of the block with the back-to-back townhouses and their design, their house design for the back-to-back townhouses. What will happen is that you'll have townhouses that will have 11-meter setback. There's the ability to provide 2 vehicles in the driveway plus 1 vehicle in the garage.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Director. Councilor Olson, were you done?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, that sounds like quite an adequate setback to me, and I'm glad that we got those drawings, because if you go into the details of them, you find out quite a few things, that a lot of attractive features to these townhouses, including covered porches and covered decks and things that add to the space that people have. And it's clear to me that these would satisfy a lot of people that I talk to when looking for homes in retirement and for starter buildings and for other purposes as well. I think these are quite acceptable in my mind.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Councilor Hahn, did I see your hand?
Yeah, through the mayor. So I was just going to say, there seems to be some confusion. So we've talked about the townhouses, then we've talked about back-to-back townhouses. And so 1 minute it's like the 6 meters is the back-to-back. What we could do, but 7.5 is the current standard. And now when looking at these drawings, you've got 11 and change. So lots of different numbers. Just some clarification, I think, is what's required here. I think you could just provide the final. Right now, of course, what's on the floor is basically the 4 instead of the 8. But if you're looking to move this forward, I would suggest that there's perhaps an amendment, unless you want to defer it. But I would suggest that some clarification as to the exact dimensions, not 6, it's not 7.5, so it's 11 and change. If you could just clarify, please.
Ms. Director of Planning, Ms. Weens?
So, Mr. Mayor, through you, in the report, we provided alternatives for you to consider. And one of the alternative is to rescind the motion of the March 22nd, 2001 motion that as it relates to the Park Place South subdivision, and then direct staff to prepare zoning bylaw amendments. And in this case, you would want to be clear that the setback for the back-to-back townhouse would be at 7.5 meters, and that the council approve the draft plan of subdivision with the conditions that were contained in the report from 2021-0052 in Appendix A and B.
So, okay, further to that then, the number 11, and it was 1140, 11.25, 11 and change. Provide some, shed some light on that, please.
So, Mr. Mayor, through you, we are now aware that you can have an 11-meter setback with those. Again, the minimum setback would be 7.5 meters. It's not the maximum setback. They can exceed that minimum setback, but the bylaw would maintain the standard that is in our current zoning bylaw. And so the reality, what you would get would be something with a greater setback, unless you want to specify it to be 11 meters, or you want it to be according to what our current standard is.
So if the builder is showing us 11 and change meter setback, and on these newer drawings that they just sent on Friday, 11's better than even 7, but that's an option too, and we would still meet our density target then at 11.
Mr. Mayor, through you, yes, you would. And so that's a decision for council to make.
So that's what I would be in favor of. It's basically, it's a win-win. This is what the developer's proposing is the 11. This is something that until these drawings came forward, it wasn't 11. We were looking at 6 or 7.5. So that's something I would be in favor of is the 11, moving forward with that.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to disagree with my fellow councillor. However, I think the standard should just remain at 7.5 meters, because we are going to have to establish a standard for these back-to-back townhouses, and to make it at 11 meters just is a good number. I like the number better, but I think I have to be reasonable at what number I want. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hahn?
But to Councillor Hildebrand's point, but is that not what the Mountain View developer is actually asking right now is for 11? So you'd be denying him the 11 and shortening it up to 7.5. But is that your objective?
No, I'm not asking to shorten it up. I'm just talking about our standard. I'm saying our standard should remain at 7.5 meters. Mountain View is actually asking for, saying they're going to produce 11.7 meters from the front of the building face and 12.7 meters to the building garage door face.
Yes, Ms. Weens?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I think from the developer's perspective, the 7.5 meters setback, it would be something that they could certainly support and be amenable to. I think if we nail it down to 11.5 or that level of detail, it as they go through their detailed design in terms of these units and the internal layout, it might turn out to be a foot longer, a foot shorter, this and that. I don't know, because these are not building permit ready drawings. They are still very conceptual. And so there is a need for some flexibility as well. And so maintaining the 7.5 meter standard would be preferred.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, I don't see any other comments. We've all spoke to it numerous times. I think we're ready for a vote. Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to receive some clarification. I have read into the record the motion as presented in the report. However, I had thought I perhaps was hearing from Councillor Hahn, perhaps she was thinking there would be an amendment to the original motion, perhaps to rescind the motion from the March 22nd, but also to include that council would approve a minimum setback of 7.5 meters for the back-to-back townhouses. Am I correct in that, Councillor Hahn? Were you making an amendment?
Thanks, Madam Clerk. Well, I was suggesting that if we just vote right now, yes or no, then this is just if we vote yes, then which I don't think will happen. Instead of the 8, it would be 4. If we vote no, we're saying no to that. But then what are we saying yes to? So correct me if I'm wrong. If we vote no on this right now, it still is just going to sit idle. Correct? So do we not have to put an amendment forward?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may, if the motion is voted down, at that point, council has disposed of the matter, and the decision would be voted no. I'm not exactly sure how staff would bring the application back. So if council wish, they could make an amendment to something that they think would be supportable and something that would pass, and then be able to move on to the next steps would be bringing a bylaw to the following meeting.
Okay. So, Director of Planning, Ms. Weems, would you like to clarify then? Do you feel that it's appropriate then to do an amendment of the 7 meters? Is that the way forward?
Mr. Mayor, through you, yes. I think what we're looking for is an amendment to the motion that's on the floor. And that amendment should stipulate that we want to rescind the March 22nd, 2001 motion, that you want to direct staff to bring a zoning bylaw forward with a 7.5 meter setback for back-to-back townhouses. And the rest of the bylaw should be as per the March 22nd, 2001 report.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor, I do have from the last motion brought forward, so potentially amendment could be that the motion be amended to strike the last 3 paragraphs of the motion and replace with, and that council rescind the motion to reconfigure blocks 35 to 39 to allow for 4 units versus 8 units with a minimum 3 meter side yard as approved on the March 22nd, 2021, and that council would approve a minimum setback of 7.5 meter setback for the back-to-back townhouses, and that council directs planning staff to prepare the bylaw for the approval of the zoning bylaw amendment as proposed in report 2021-0052 presented on council on March 22nd, 2021 for council's consideration at the next meeting, and that council approve the draft plan of subdivision and conditions, draft plan of conditions as approval as contained in Appendix A and B in report 2021-0052 presented to council on March 22nd, 2021.
So, Ms. Weems?
Pardon me, Madam Clerk, if I can be clear. The motion that was to reconfigure the blocks to 4 units versus 8 units, that is the motion that we want to rescind.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, in here I do have from your last report, and that council rescind the motion to reconfigure blocks 35 to 39 to allow for 4 units.
Okay, I just misheard you or misunderstood. Sorry.
No, then my apologies.
Is the rest okay, you believe, Ms. Weems?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Corr?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make this clear. So we went from a 4 back to 8, but with a setback of 7.5. Is that what we just did?
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Any other comments, questions before we call the vote?
Sorry, I'm still looking. No, Mr. Mayor, this is a proposed amendment, and I would be looking for a mover and a seconder. I'm not sure that Councillor Hahn did actually move that, so my apologies. For this to get on the floor, we would need a mover and a seconder.
Okay, so we need a mover for the motion. Councillor Hahn, are you interested in moving this?
Actually, there's still 2 people with hands up, so I'd like to hear from
No,
them.
they just want to move the motion. That's all. So
Okay,
you don't want to move
They
it?
can move the motion if they like then.
Okay, Councillor Hildebrand, you will move the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Wink, you will second?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other, okay, Madam Clerk?
Unless there's any other discussion, then I would start the vote for the amendment.
Okay, just a minute, please. Let's call. Any other discussion on this? Councillor Olson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not clear why we're doing the 7.5 meter because we have 11 and change here. Why are we doing the 7.5?
Ms. Weems, would you like to explain that?
Minimum.
So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That would be the minimum, and it is the town standard, so you're not amending the town standard.
If the builder wants to go further, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Director, he can go further. Is the seven's the minimum?
Correct. It is the minimum setback. It's not the maximum setback. So
Okay.
he could go 8 meters, 9 meters, 10 meters, or 11 meters as he's proposing. But the 7.5 meters is the town standard, so you're not amending the standard. You would be keeping it the same.
Okay. Councilor Olson?
No more questions, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions on this amendment? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Okay, thank you. So this is the vote on just the amendment, and I start the vote with Councillor Kaur,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Hahn,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, and that carries. So I would then have the main motion as amended with the same mover and seconder. So I'll have it as Councillor Hildebrandt moving with the same seconder being Councillor Wink. So then this would be for the main motion as amended, unless there's any discussion.
Any discussion on the motion as amended? Councilor Olson?
Could you read the motion for me, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, of course. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2021-0098, Park Place South Draft Plan of Subdivision and Zoning Bylaw Amendment Supplementary Report for information as it pertains to file numbers 26T9-02-20 and AM-08-20. And that Council rescind the motion to reconfigure blocks 35 to 39 to allow 4 units versus 8 units with a minimum 3-meter side yard as approved on March 22nd. And that Council approve a minimum setback of 7.5 meters for the back-to-back townhouses. And that Council directs planning staff to prepare the bylaw for approval of the zoning bylaw amendment as proposed in Report 2021-0052 presented to Council on March 22nd, 2021 for Council's consideration at the next meeting. And that Council approve the draft plan of subdivision and condition draft plan approval as contained in Appendix A and B in Report 2021-0052 presented to Council on March 22nd, 2021.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any discussions on the motion? Councilor Hahn?
Thank you. I just want to take the opportunity for those people viewing and also the local tabloids, they can capture that, in fact, Mr. Gagnon from Mountain View supplied us with new drawings as of Thursday or Friday. So appreciate that. And those show 11.7. Appreciate that. But I think that's important information if that wasn't already captured.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments pertaining to the motion? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote will then again begin with Councillor Kaur,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Hahn,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, and that does carry. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring us to our next item of business, which is the presentation and consideration of bylaws. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kaur, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do read first, second, and third time and do pass same, and that the mayor and clerk be and is hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. 1. Bylaw number 4348-2021, being a bylaw to appoint a town clerk for the corporation of the Town of Pelham. And 2. Bylaw 4349-2021, being a bylaw to appoint Sarah Leach as Deputy Clerk for the Corporation of the Town of Pelham. Through you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Any comments or questions on these bylaws, which will give the town the best clerk department in the region?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Hahn.
Just want to take the opportunity to congratulate Sarah once again.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing any. Please call the vote.
Thank you,
Madam
Mr.
Clerk.
Mayor. I will begin with Councillor Olson,
Yes?
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Hahn,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
My pleasure. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Kaur.
Definitely yes.
Thank you, Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, and that carries. Thank you very much.
Sarah, it's official. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring us to motions, and we do have a motion put forward by Councillor Stewart and Councillor Hildebrandt. Councillor Stewart, would you like to read this into the record?
Yes, I can read it.
Thank you.
Okay. Whereas the Town of Pelham Senior Advisory Committee regularly meets to discuss ongoing issues affecting seniors, and whereas the Senior Advisory Committee has identified access to essential services through electronic means only as an accessibility issue for seniors and vulnerable populations. And whereas the Town of Pelham is committed to working with its Seniors Advisory Committee to ensure all seniors and vulnerable populations have access to all essential services by means other than digital as a duty to accommodate accessibility. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Council for the Town of Pelham requests the Niagara region and its lower tier municipalities, Niagara Age Friendly Network, Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, MP Dean Allison and MPP Sam Oosterhoff, support requesting the Honourable Raymond Cho, Minister of Seniors and Accessibility of Ontario, to review and take action if necessary, whether the changes of digitizing essential services are barring seniors and vulnerable populations from accessing essential services, and to advocate for seniors and vulnerable populations and their rights to access essential services. And that Council for the Town of Pelham direct the town clerk to circulate and request the Niagara region and its lower tier municipalities, Niagara Age Friendly Network, Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, MP Dean Allison and MPP Sam Oosterhoff endorse and support this resolution. And that Council for the Town of Pelham direct the town clerk to forward any and all received resolutions supporting this endeavor to the Honourable Raymond Cho, Minister of Seniors and Accessibility of Ontario, for his information.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. I really don't have anything to add to the motion, but we did have a Seniors Advisory Committee meeting last week, and one of the members had been invited by the Toronto Dominion Bank to a discussion about what happened. And she was informed at that time that even though the bank would likely never come back, they are committed to maintaining a ATM machine in that location for as long as they have that location, and then afterwards to have one in somewhere else in the town, and to remind the seniors that telephone banking is always accessible for them.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Hildebrandt, seconder of the motion, would you like to speak to it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Stewart has explained well. The seniors need access, and access these days is through electronic means. And that's what that seniors are promoting.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor. Any other questions or comments from any other councillors on this motion put forward? I'm not seeing any. I know I will certainly be voting in favor of this motion for the benefit of all seniors, obviously. Thank you. Not seeing any comments. I'll turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. I'll begin the vote on this with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Counselor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Counselor Kaur,
Yes.
Counselor Olson,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, and that carries. Mr. Mayor, that does bring us to our confirming bylaw, and I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be ready first, second, and third time and passed, being a bylaw number 4350-2021 to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of Council of the Town of Pelham at its regular meeting held on the 17th day of May 2021. Looking for you for discussion, Mr. Mayor?
I believe so. I don't see. Oh, I see Councillor Hahn has a hand.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Actually, I think, did we just hop over new business? Because there was something I wanted to actually mention in new business just as a nice thing to mention, so.
Oh, I apologize. I didn't think that the agenda had been amended to include any new business.
It's just very minor. If I could just have just a minute of time.
Yep, go ahead.
I just wanted to let everyone know, so in anticipation of Gypsy Moth Spraying, which will, I believe, happen on, I want to say it starts on the 20th of this week, we are going to be using the Zimmer Air is going to be using the airport, the Niagara Central Dorothy Rentschling Airport, as a staging for the Gypsy Moth Spraying. So I think it's a nice thing to do, and they'll be able to stage with their truck with the they'll be able to refuel as well as land there with the helicopter, and then load up each time they need to load up the spray, the BTK spray. So it'll take, I think, 3 or so 4 days this week, and then I think 5 to 10 days they'll do that again. So we're very pleased to offer this at the airport to help out our community. Thank you.
Thank you for that news, Councillor. Indeed, it is good to see the airport being used by a great benefit to the community. Thank you. Any other? Let's ask any other new business by any other councillors. Okay, not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Starting for the vote for the confirming bylaw would be Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Hahn,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Councillor Kaur,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, and that carries. Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forward by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that this regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for June 7th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. Unless there's any discussion?
Any discussion? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
I'll start the vote with Councillor Hahn,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Councillor Kaur,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That carries. Mr. Mayor, you may gavel out your meeting.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Right.